"How much does she cost?" the Alpha King asked when he saw her offered in marriage, and the hall froze. The grand hall was alive with whispers and rustling silk. Tall pillars stretched like blackened trees, carved with runes that glowed faintly under the flickering candlelight. Shadows danced across the walls as if the hall itself were breathing. Nobles and merchants from distant lands had gathered, their eyes sharp and calculating, waiting for the evening's spectacle. Tonight was the marriage auction, a tradition older than the kingdom itself, where families offered daughters to powerful men and supernatural beings. At the center of the hall a girl stood, her hands bound lightly with silken cords. She was small, almost fragile, but there was a presence about her that drew every eye. Her hair was dark, tumbling like midnight waves down her back, and her eyes were bright, clear, and unafraid. Her name was Alara. Alara's life had never been her own. Her family had fallen into debt after her father's death, and now she was being sold like a commodity. She had walked into the hall with her head high, but the weight of dozens of staring eyes pressed upon her chest. She felt like a bird trapped in a gilded cage, each gaze tightening the bars. The auctioneer's voice cut through the murmurs. It was high and sharp, echoing across the stone pillars. "Next," he called, "we have Lady Alara, youngest daughter of House Valendry. Who will offer for her hand?" The crowd erupted into bidding almost immediately. Voices clamored in greed and competition. Some offered land, others jewels. Some promised titles or positions of influence. Alara kept her gaze forward, refusing to meet the eyes of those who would claim her. Each offer made her stomach tighten, a reminder of the life that was being sold piece by piece. Then the hall door creaked. A hush spread like a wave, rolling through the crowd. All eyes turned to the entrance. The Alpha King had arrived. Kalen entered as though he were a force of nature itself, tall and commanding, with shoulders broad enough to seem carved from stone. He walked with a grace that was almost predatory. His hair was the color of dark ash, his eyes a sharp amber that seemed to pierce the very souls of those who dared meet his gaze. Around him the air seemed to shift, subtle but palpable. Even the flickering candlelight seemed to bend toward him. No one spoke. The auctioneer swallowed nervously, his voice faltering. Whispers rose in a tremor. The Alpha King rarely attends these events. It is an honor or a warning. Kalen's eyes found Alara immediately. They held a strange intensity, not merely interest, but recognition, as if he had been waiting for her, though he did not know why. For the first time, Alara felt her pulse quicken, not in fear, but in an unnameable tension. Something in his gaze felt like a storm contained within amber eyes, dangerous and electric. She looked away quickly, though she knew he would not stop searching. The bidding continued around them, but it felt muted, distant. Kalen's presence had shifted the balance in the hall. He did not move toward the auctioneer. He simply stepped forward, silent, his amber eyes never leaving Alara. Finally he spoke. His voice was low, calm, yet carrying the weight of command that made even the boldest nobles flinch. "How much does she cost?" The words rolled through the hall, simple, yet absolute. Silence fell instantly. The auctioneer's gavel hovered midair. Bids froze on lips, and every noble turned to look at the king. Murmurs ran through the crowd like wildfire. He asked, "How much?" "The Alpha is bidding?" "Impossible. No one can meet his offer." Alara's heart thudded painfully. She could not tell if it was fear or a strange thrill that made her pulse race. She had never been looked at this way. Like she mattered. Like she was not simply property to be exchanged. Kalen's gaze lingered on her, silent and unyielding. He did not need to make a bid yet. His mere question was enough to shake the hall. The auctioneer stammered, "Your Majesty!" The offer. Perhaps. Kalen raised a hand, stopping him. "Tell me her price," he said again, softer this time but no less commanding. The auctioneer's face paled. Nobles shifted in their seats, uncomfortable and anxious. The starting bid is 500 gold marks, Your Majesty," he said, his voice trembling. But her worth— "Do not speak of worth," Kalen interrupted, his voice like steel cloaked in shadow. "Only price." Elara's eyes widened. This man, feared by all, had spoken as though she were not just a piece to be claimed, but a matter of fact, an assertion that nothing else mattered. It was terrifying, yet somehow magnetic. Bids rose again, but Kalen remained still. Then, in a move that stunned the crowd, he silently signaled the auctioneer. Without a word, a sum far beyond the kingdom's wealth was offered, an amount so high that whispers ran through the hall like fire. Impossible. Insane. The king is buying her? Elara could barely comprehend what was happening. Her life, which had seemed decided by debt and circumstance, was now controlled by a man she did not know, whose eyes had already imprinted themselves upon her. She felt fear, awe, and an odd stirring of something else, an unnameable pull toward him. The auctioneer's voice shook as he confirmed the bid. "Your Majesty, the offer is accepted." The hall erupted in stunned murmurs and whispered calculations. Elara felt all eyes on her, but none so intense as Kalen's. She was led forward, the silken cords now loose around her wrists. The nobles stared, the whispers curling around her like smoke. Kalen did not speak to her as she was brought before him. He simply observed, silent and measuring, as though trying to read a language written in her posture and expression. His presence was suffocating yet exhilarating, like standing on the edge of a cliff where the wind threatens to throw you off, yet the view is breathtaking. Elara's mind raced. She wanted to speak, to protest, to ask what this meant, but words failed her. The air between them was charged, and she felt as if she could be seen entirely, as if the shadows themselves could not hide her. Finally, Kalen's lips moved, his voice softer now, a whisper that carried over the hall but reached only her. "You will not regret it, if you do as you must." Elara did not know what he meant, but she nodded, because she had no choice. Her life had been stolen, yet in this moment she felt strangely alive, as though fate had twisted in a new direction. The hall remained in a stunned hush as Kalen turned and left, Elara following closely behind. Each step echoed in the vast, dark hall, the whispers of nobles fading into silence. But the murmurs outside would not stop. Who is she? Why does the king want her? What power does she hold that even he cannot ignore? As she stepped through the castle doors into the cool night, Elara felt a mixture of fear and anticipation. She did not know what awaited her in the Alpha King's fortress, only that her life had irrevocably changed. Shadows stretched long across the courtyard, and the fog rolled in like a living thing. Kalen's hand brushed lightly against the hilt of his sword, and his gaze met hers once more. There was a promise in that look. Danger, yes, but also something else. Something raw and unspoken. Something that made her pulse race, and her mind whirl with questions she was not yet ready to ask. The carriage that would take her to the castle waited, drawn by black steeds that seemed as untamed as the forest surrounding the fortress. As the doors closed, Elara pressed her hands together, trying to calm the storm within her. She had survived the auction, but she had a sinking feeling that the trials had only begun. And somewhere in the shadows of the castle, Kalen watched her approach. The Alpha King, feared by all, was stirring something long buried within himself. A curiosity that threatened to awaken feelings he had not allowed in centuries. And for the first time, he felt uncertain. For the first time, he felt alive. The carriage rolled through the thick fog of the forest, the trees arching above like ancient sentinels guarding the secrets of the night. Elara pressed her hands against her knees, staring out at the darkness, her heart still racing from the auction. Every turn of the wheels brought her closer to Kalen's fortress, yet the sense of unease grew heavier with each passing mile. The castle finally emerged from the mist like a shadow made of stone. Towers rose sharply into the sky, their blackened spires piercing the clouds. Windows glimmered faintly with golden light, and the air smelled of smoke and something faintly metallic, as if the very stones held memories of battles long past. Elara swallowed nervously as the carriage approached the gates. Servants in dark livery opened the doors with silent precision, their faces expressionless. As she stepped down, the cold wind cut across her face, and she shivered not entirely from the chill. The place exuded power, a presence that pressed against the chest, demanding recognition. Kalen was already waiting at the entrance. He did not smile, did not speak, yet every movement of his body commanded attention. The firelight behind him cast shadows that seemed to cling to him, and when his amber eyes met hers, Elara felt a strange pull, as if the fog, the castle, and the night itself bowed in acknowledgment of him. "Walk beside me," he said finally, his voice deep and calm, yet edged with authority. Elara obeyed, stepping carefully on the cold stone floors as he led her through the hallways. The corridors seemed endless, their arches carved with scenes of warriors and beasts from ages long forgotten. Statues of former rulers lined the walls, their eyes hollow yet watchful. Shadows twisted and lengthened as they passed, as though the castle itself were alive, observing her with silent curiosity. "You will stay in the east wing," Kalen said, gesturing toward a set of heavy doors. "A room befitting your position." Alara's pulse quickened. Position? The word reminded her that she was no longer free. She was a possession, in a way. Yet the way Kalen spoke suggested something more. Authority, tempered with a strange care. "Your room will be prepared," he continued, his gaze never leaving her. "You may walk the halls at your own discretion. But be warned, this castle is not forgiving." The east wing was cold and silent, the walls lined with tapestries depicting battles and legends of the past. Her room was simple yet elegant, a bed draped with dark velvet, and a window that looked out over the forest. She moved to the window and pressed her hand to the glass, feeling a mix of awe and fear. She had entered a place where power was absolute, where the line between legend and reality blurred, and she could not shake the feeling that her life would never be the same again. That evening, Kalen summoned her to the main hall for dinner. She followed silently, her senses alert to every sound, the echo of her footsteps, the flicker of candlelight, the whisper of shadows along the walls. The hall was vast, with ceilings high enough to disappear into darkness. A long table stretched the length of the room, set with silver and crystal that gleamed in the firelight. Kalen was already seated at the head of the table, his presence commanding the room. As Elara approached, he did not rise, did not offer her a seat. Instead, he watched her, as though measuring every movement, every breath. "You may sit," he said finally, a note of authority threading his words. Elara took her seat at the far end of the table, aware that every eye, both human and supernatural, was on her. The servants moved silently, placing food before them without speaking. The meal was simple, yet rich in flavor, each bite tasting of herbs and spices grown only in the castle gardens. Elara ate cautiously, her mind spinning with thoughts of Kalen, the auction, and the strange pull she felt toward him. After several moments of silence, Kalen spoke, his voice low and controlled. "Do you understand why you are here, Elara?" Elara hesitated, choosing her words carefully. I know I was offered in marriage. But I do not understand why you chose me." Kalen's amber eyes studied her, sharp and unreadable. "I did not choose you for beauty or for title. I chose you because there is something in you, something rare. Most are afraid to face me. Most would bow without thought. You do not." Ayar's heart skipped a beat. She had not thought of herself as brave. She had survived fear, yes, but standing in the presence of the Alpha King, of Kalen, was different. She felt small, yet in some strange way, alive. Kalen leaned back, his gaze unwavering. "This castle, my family, it carries a curse. The walls remember pain. Shadows carry whispers. You are not here simply to be my companion. You are here because you may help undo what has lasted far too long." Alara's hands clenched in her lap. The weight of the revelation pressed down on her. "Undo the curse," she whispered. "How can I?" "You will learn," Kalen said, his voice calm, yet filled with intensity. But first, you must survive the night. A word sent a chill down her spine. Survive the night. She had expected fear, but Kalen's tone suggested more. A warning that the castle itself was a living thing, that it would test her. Later, when the halls were quiet and the servants had retired, Elara could not sleep. She wandered through the east wing, her footsteps echoing against stone floors. The shadows seemed to stretch and shift around her, whispering secrets she could not understand. At the end of a long corridor, she paused in front of a tapestry depicting a woman in chains, her eyes full of sorrow. Something about the image made Elara's heart ache, as if the woman's pain echoed through time. A sudden noise made her turn. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Not a servant, not a ghost, but a young boy, pale and trembling. Who are you? Elara asked softly. The boy's eyes were wide, and his voice was a whisper. I am trapped here. This castle, it does not let me leave. Elara felt a shiver run down her spine. Trapped, like a prisoner? He nodded. The walls, they remember. They keep the echoes of pain, of anger, of sorrow. Be careful. Do not trust the silence. Do not trust the shadows. Before she could ask more, he vanished into the darkness, leaving only a faint, cold breeze and the echo of his warning. Elara returned to her room, her mind racing. Kalen's words, the castle, the boy, everything was connected. She felt the weight of the night pressing on her. The sense that she had stepped into a world where danger was constant, where nothing was as it seemed. The next morning, Kalen appeared at her door. His expression was unreadable, yet there was a subtle intensity in his eyes. You wandered the halls last night, he said. Did you find what you were looking for? Elara shook her head. I do not know, but I saw something. A boy or a spirit, perhaps? He warned me about the castle. Kalen's lips curved slightly, almost imperceptibly. Good. Fear is a teacher. Respect the walls. Respect the shadows. They are older than you, older than me, and they are patient. He motioned for her to follow. They walked through the halls together, Kalen pointing out portraits, statues, and tapestries. Each seemed alive with whispers, each carrying a piece of history she did not understand. You will learn that this castle is not merely stone and mortar, Kalen said. It is memory, it is spirit, it is warning. To survive here, you must learn its rules and its secrets. Elara's steps faltered. And if I fail? Kalen's eyes locked on hers. Then the shadows will keep you, and you will join the echoes. But I do not believe you will fail. For the first time, Elara felt a strange mixture of fear and resolve. She had survived the auction, survived the gaze of Kalen, and now she faced a new trial. The castle itself. She did not know if she could conquer its shadows, but she knew she must try. As night fell again, Elara stood by her window, looking out at the castle grounds. The moon cast silver light across the blackened stones, and the fog rolled in like waves of dark silk. Somewhere in the distance, Kalen's figure moved silently, a lone sentinel against the creeping darkness. And then, from the shadows of the courtyard, a whisper drifted to her ears. The king tests all who enter. Will she stand or fall? Elara pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the rapid beat of her heart. The castle was alive. The Alpha King was watching, and the night was only beginning. The moon hung low in the sky, silver and cold, as if it had been watching the castle for centuries. Elara stood in the castle's garden, a place the servants rarely entered, where black roses bloomed despite the cursed soil. The air was heavy with mist, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and forgotten magic. Every shadow seemed to shift, stretching towards her as though the night itself were alive. Kalen appeared silently behind her. He did not announce himself. There was no need. His presence had become so commanding that even in the shadows she could feel him. You are awake, he said, his voice deep and calm like distant thunder. Elara turned, startled but steadying herself. I couldn't sleep. The shadows, they feel different tonight. They are restless, Kalen admitted. The curse knows your presence now. It tests both of us. Do you feel it? Elara nodded. Fear prickled her skin, but there was also a strange thrill. Every night, every shadow, every whisper felt like a challenge she could not ignore. She was no longer merely a guest in this castle. She was a participant in its secrets. Kalen stepped closer, the mist curling around him like smoke. "Come," he said. "You must learn the truth of this place. It is not just stone and spell. It is memory, anger, and sorrow. And it is hungry for weakness." They walked in silence, moving through the garden paths that twisted like serpents. Statues of former kings and queens loomed among the roses, their eyes hollow yet watching. The black petals seemed to shiver as they passed. "Elara," Kalen said after a pause, "most who enter these gardens fear the night. They fear the whispers, the shadows. But you do not step back." Elara looked at him, startled. "I do fear," she whispered, "but I cannot let it control me. I have nowhere else to stand." Kalen's amber eyes softened, though only slightly. "You are stronger than you know. That strength, it is rare. Perhaps it is why I chose you." Alara's heart thumped loudly. Chose her. Not bought, not demanded. Ghislaine knew Cisbelaining that chose! The word echoed in her mind, igniting a spark she had not felt in years. And yet the weight of her situation pressed down upon her. She was not free. She had no power here. Not truly. Before she could speak, a sudden movement in the shadows caught her eye. A figure emerged, cloaked in darkness. Shadow beasts, Kalen's enemies, or the curse itself, had come to test them. Their forms were fluid and black, eyes glowing faintly with malice. Kalen stepped in front of her, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. The mist seemed to obey him, swirling around his feet as if alive. Alara's pulse raced, but she did not step back. "Stay close," he commanded. The beasts lunged, fast and silent. Kalen moved like a shadow himself, striking with precision and power. But one beast leapt toward Elara. Her instinct, sharp and quick, guided her hand. She grabbed a fallen branch and swung with all her strength. The creature hissed and recoiled, slinking back into the darkness. Kalen's amber eyes widened, not in anger, but in recognition. He had underestimated her courage, her ability to act under fear. "You are not helpless," he said, his voice low, almost reverent. "Few could face them and survive." Elara swallowed, her hands trembling slightly. I did what I had to." Kalen stepped closer, the mist curling around him like a cloak. "And that makes you dangerous." "Not to me," he added, his voice softer, "but to the curse that haunts this place. It will see you as a threat." They stood together in the moonlit garden, the black roses shivering around them. For a moment, silence held them in a fragile bubble, separate from the shadows, the mist, and the castle. "Elara," Kalen said quietly, "there is more you must understand. This castle, this curse, it is not just a trial. It is a reflection of the heart. Fear, anger, regret, they become alive here. Only by facing them together can we hope to survive it." Elara looked at him, her mind struggling to grasp the weight of his words. "Together?" she asked. Kalen's gaze softened slightly. "Yes, you are no longer just a guest or a bride. You are a companion in the struggle. I cannot undo this alone, and neither can you." The word struck her deeply. For the first time she felt that she was not merely a pawn, not merely a prize. She mattered. And yet the pull of danger remained. She could feel the shadows twisting, waiting for a mistake, a sign of weakness. Over the following days, Kalen began to test her, not with force but with knowledge and trust. He showed her the secret passages, the ancient libraries, the rooms where the curse's power was strongest. Every step through the castle was a lesson in awareness, courage, and endurance. Elara learned to move silently, to notice the slightest change in shadow, to listen for whispers in the stone walls, and with each lesson, Kalen observed her closely. He was patient, yet there was a tension in his amber eyes, a pull that made her pulse quicken. One evening they walked along the battlements under a sky swirling with storm clouds. Lightning flashed across the horizon, illuminating the forest below. The wind whipped through their hair, cold and sharp, and Elara felt the thrill of the night, of the danger, of the unknown. "You have changed," Kalen said quietly. "Since the auction, since your arrival, you have grown stronger, more aware, more alive." Elara looked at him, startled by the intensity in his gaze. I am trying," she admitted. "I want to survive here. I want to understand." Kalen nodded, the corners of his mouth lifting ever so slightly. "Good. Strength alone is not enough. Courage, awareness, and trust. These are what will carry you. And perhaps something else, something I have long forgotten." Alara's heart quickened. She did not yet know what he meant, but she felt it. A connection forming, fragile yet undeniable, like the first bloom of a black rose in the night garden. Their moments of quiet intimacy, brief as they were, became precious. In the dim candlelight of the library, Kalen would explain the history of the curse. In the gardens, they would practice moving through shadows, their hands brushing as they passed each other, sending sparks of awareness and something deeper through both of them. And yet, the curse's presence was never far. One night, as thunder rumbled through the castle, Elara awoke to whispers at her window. She moved toward the sound, and there, hovering just outside the glass, was a faint glowing figure, a spirit trapped by the curse. "Elara," it whispered. "The Alpha King. He will fall if he cannot learn the truth of his own heart. Beware the shadows that linger within him, and within you." The figure faded before she could ask more, leaving only a shiver in her chest and the sense of an impending trial. When Kalen arrived the next morning, he found her staring at the empty window, pale but determined. "What did you see?" he asked. "A spirit," she whispered. It warned about you." "About the curse. About us." Kalen's expression darkened. For the first time, his composed exterior cracked slightly. "The castle tests all who enter," he admitted. "Even me. Even now. And sometimes, the ones I care for most are in greatest danger." Elara stepped closer, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. "Then we must face it together. Whatever the castle sends, whatever the curse tests, we face it as one." Kalen studied her, and for a long moment, no words passed between them. Then, finally, he said, his voice low and certain, "Very well. We shall see how strong your heart truly is." They trained together through the day, moving through the twisting halls and secret chambers, learning the ways of shadows, the whispers of the walls, the subtle movements of the curse. Each lesson brought them closer, not just in trust, but in understanding. The tension between them was palpable, unspoken yet powerful, a dangerous spark in a world where danger lurked at every turn. And as night fell again, the castle seemed to breathe around them. Shadows lengthened, curling toward the windows and doorways, as if testing their resolve. Kalen and Elara stood together on the battlements, facing the storm that approached, the wind tearing at their cloaks and hair. "I feel it," Elara whispered. "The curse, it knows we are ready." Kalen's amber eyes glimmered in the lightning. "Then it will strike soon, and we must be ready, not only with strength, but with trust, with heart." A sudden flash of movement in the forest below made them both tense. Something dark and alive was stirring, a reminder that the night held dangers beyond their understanding. And then, as if the storm itself had answered the castle's whispers, a shadow surged toward them, larger than any they had faced before, its eyes glowing with the promise of trials yet to come. Elara gripped Kalen's arm. "It's here," she said. her voice a mixture of fear and determination. Kalen's hand closed around hers, firm and steady. "Then we face it together," he said, his voice a quiet promise. "No retreat, no surrender." The shadow lunged, and the night erupted into motion, storm and challenge. The ruins lay before them, ancient and jagged, a place where the kingdom's first kings had carved their power into stone. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the blackened walls and shattered statues of forgotten rulers. Rain poured in sheets, drumming against the stones and soaking the earth beneath their feet. The wind carried whispers of the past, warnings, pleas, and echoes of sorrow. Kalen led Alara through the broken archways, his cloak whipping behind him, his amber eyes scanning every shadow. The castle had sent them here, guiding them to the heart of the curse. Every step was dangerous. Every movement could trigger a trap, a spirit, or worse. "Alara," Kalen called over the storm, his voice steady despite the thunder. "Stay close. The curse will test us now, more than ever." Alara's hands gripped his arm. "I am ready. Whatever comes, we face it together." He allowed a brief, almost imperceptible nod. That trust, fragile yet powerful, was the key. In the ruins, their bond would be tested in ways neither had imagined. The center of the ruins held a circular stone platform, cracked and weathered. Symbols of old magic glowed faintly under the rain, and shadows seemed to writhe as if alive. A dark figure emerged from the mist, its shape towering and ever-shifting. Eyes glowed from within the shadow, reflecting centuries of rage and sorrow. The curse had taken form. Kalen stepped forward instinctively, placing himself between Alara and the shadow. His hand rested on the hilt of his sword, though he did not draw it. There was a weight in the air, a feeling that steel alone would not save them. The shadow hissed, and the wind carried 1,000 whispered threats. It spoke not in words but in emotions: fear, regret, anger, despair. The ruins themselves seemed to pulse with its energy. Alara's heart pounded, but she did not retreat. She looked at Kalen. His gaze met hers, steady and commanding. In that moment, she realized something. He could not face this alone, and neither could she. Kalen reached for her hand. "Focus," he said. "Together. Trust me. Trust yourself." Alara nodded, gripping his hand tightly. The warmth of his touch grounded her, giving her courage against the storm and the living darkness. The shadow moved closer, its form twisting and writhing. Kalen and Alara stood side by side, their combined presence a defiance the curse could not ignore. With every surge of shadow, Alara felt fear rising, but she also felt something else: strength, determination, and an unspoken bond with Kalen that deepened with every heartbeat. "Do not fear it," Kalen whispered. "It thrives on fear. It will fade if we do not give it power." Alara closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. Memories of the auction, the castle, the nights spent learning and surviving, and the quiet moments with Kalen filled her mind. She let those memories anchor her, anchoring both their wills against the shadow. When she opened her eyes, she felt a surge of energy. The curse faltered, as if startled by her courage. Kalen stepped closer, his presence amplifying the force she had summoned. Together they advanced, their combined will pushing the shadow backward. Lightning flashed, revealing the shadow's true form. Twisted, fragmented images of past kings, their faces contorted with rage and sorrow. It was a mirror of everything Kalen had tried to bury: the failures, the pain, the loneliness, the weight of the Alpha Crown. Kalen's voice rang out, clear and powerful.
"I accept my past. I accept my heart."
"You will not hold me or her," Alara echoed him, her voice strong despite the storm. "And I will not be afraid. We face this together, and we will endure." The shadow shrieked, a sound that rattled bones and hearts alike. The rain poured harder, lightning illuminating the ruins in stark bursts. The shadow thrashed, but the light of their courage, their trust, their bond pressed against it. Alara felt warmth in Kalen's hand. His grip tightened. Their combined presence created a wave of energy, one born not of magic or steel but of heart, trust, and courage. Slowly, the shadow began to dissipate, the darkness unraveling as if pulled apart by their united will. And then, as the storm reached its peak, the ruins themselves seemed to exhale. The symbols on the stone glowed bright white, and the shadows dissolved into mist, rising into the sky like smoke from a long-forgotten fire. Kaelin and Alara stood in the center of the ruins, soaked, exhausted, yet victorious. The storm began to calm, the clouds parting to reveal the first light of dawn breaking through. Alara looked at him, her eyes wide. "It's over?" Kaelin shook his head slowly, a rare soft smile touching his lips. "Not just over. We survived. Together. And in surviving, we changed everything. The curse, it is broken." For the first time, Alara allowed herself to breathe fully. The weight of fear, of captivity, of shadows, lifted from her shoulders. She looked around the ruins, the air sparkling with the remnants of magic released, and felt the pulse of life returning to the stones. Kaelin's gaze fell on her, deep and amber, filled with a mixture of awe, respect, and something tender that made her heart flutter. He stepped closer, brushing a wet strand of hair from her face. "You were remarkable," he said quietly. "Courageous, unyielding, and alive in a way I had forgotten how to be." Elara's lips curved into a tentative smile.
I only did what I had to, and I had you."
Kaelin's hand lingered near hers. "No," he said softly. "You had yourself. I only stood beside you." "But," his voice caught slightly, rare vulnerability in the Alpha King's usual composure, "I am glad I was there. For you. For us." The moment hung between them, electric and fragile. The storm had passed, but something more powerful lingered, something neither shadow nor curse could destroy. Alara took a step closer, her hand brushing against his. "Kaelin, I don't know what tomorrow brings. The world may still be dangerous. The shadows may never fully leave. But I trust you. I trust us." Kaelin's gaze softened, and he took her hand fully in his. "And I trust you," he whispered, "more than I have trusted anyone in centuries." The sun rose over the ruins, golden light spilling over blackened stone. The forest beyond stirred with life, the curse no longer holding its grip. For the first time in a long time, Kaelin allowed himself to breathe freely. And for the first time, Alara felt the true meaning of safety, not in walls, not in shadows, but in the bond they had forged together. They turned to leave the ruins, side by side, hearts aligned. Every step was lighter, freer, yet full of meaning. They had survived the castle, the shadows, the curse, and in doing so they had discovered themselves and each other. As they reached the forest's edge, Alara glanced back at the ruins. They had been a place of fear, of trial, and of power. Now they were a monument to what courage, trust, and heart could achieve. Kaelin's hand brushed hers once more. "The world may still be dark," he said softly, "but together we can face it, and perhaps even bring light where it is most needed."
Alara smiled, her heart swelling with warmth.
"Then we face it together, Alpha King. Whatever comes, we face it together." Kaelin's amber eyes softened into a rare, quiet smile. "Yes, together." And so, the Alpha King and Alara stepped forward, leaving the ruins and the shadows behind. The curse was broken. The castle, though still ancient and imposing, was no longer a place of fear, and their hearts, tempered in darkness and trial, were no longer bound by fear or fate. They were united, strong, and free. The wind carried the scent of black roses and rain-soaked earth, the whispers of the past fading into silence. And as the first light of dawn touched the forest and the castle beyond, Alara and Kaelin walked side by side, their future unwritten but theirs to shape. The night of shadows had ended. The day of trust, courage, and love had begun.